House.com.
Top 5 surprise teams. Number 5 is a little bit like that. I put them at 5, but I do think, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on this, it's Oklahoma. I think after last week, I thought they were going to be better this year, but being number 5 in the country at this point in the season, I don't think I would have had Oklahoma doing just that. Now, I know their schedule lined up for that, but I just thought that maybe there'd be a little bit more growing pains than we've seen, and so far they've dealt with everything perfectly.
Well, I absolutely did not have them beating Texas, and I thought that there was still a chance that could get one-sided. When they scored quickly and kind of put out a note and a statement, they impressed the hell out of me, despite the fact they had blown the lead late in the game.
I always believed in my Sooners. How dare y'all? I'm just kidding, obviously. Yeah, I thought Texas would win last week. And look, if you pick Texas, they were a minute away from winning the game, so it's not like it was just some, took them to the woodshed. But, yeah, Oklahoma's much better than I expected them to be. Now, granted, I don't think, because I know them a little bit better, that gives me a better opinion because I'm a bit more pessimistic with them than I am with other teams, too, because I overcorrect, if anything, to set myself up to be happily surprised like last weekend. But, no, I mean, they're much further along defensively than I thought they would be, even thinking that they would be better. They've been much better than I expected already, and Dylan Gabriel and the offense are just zooming on along. So, yeah, to be here I don't think is a total shock, but it is a little bit surprising. And, we'll see now. I mean, now all the aim is back on them now. Yeah. I mean, they're right there. They're the top team in the conference. They're a CFP contender. And if they win out, we know they're in. Yeah. But, now that target's on their back. And it's been a little while since it's been firmly on their back. It's been a little bit. So, let's see how they deal with that.
I just thought that what they did also, not just make up for getting destroyed 49-0. But there was the thought now that the SEC was around the corner, that Texas was far and away ahead of the curve when it comes to Oklahoma. And I think that they're just both very high-level elite blue bloods, and I think they're both going to be just fine. How fine, I don't know, but I think that was something Oklahoma kind of showed as well.
Yeah. Number 4, Air Force.
Good for the
Academy. They are look, we saw them in the bowl game last year, and it's hard to judge anything from that frozen hellscape of a nightmare that we had to be thrown into.
But the people at Amon Carter were great. Yeah. That is my one positive takeaway. I will always say wonderful. That because they had to deal with that experience, and so, they were great.
I will only say there was one guy, and I'll call him parking lot a-hole, who was like, no, I can't let you in. I'm like, buddy,
there's only 12 cars.
Just let me drop the stuff off. I'll call your boss right now.
He let me in.
Yeah, he didn't let me in. Well,
I said, go Frogs.
Yeah, no, I don't know. He was being you give him a little bit of that power, and sometimes they're just drunk with it.
Like those Cowboys training camp volunteers.
Yeah, exactly. But they feel like Al Pacino at the end of Scarface just hopped up on cocaine, thinking they're going to beat everybody. But
y'all weren't even outside for the whole game.
No, I don't.
Oh my God.
Also because of that, my one takeaway from the game is behind Paul.
Yeah. It's also why you have 3 fingers on your right hand because you froze off.
That's why during the summer sometimes he was just still wearing a hoodie when it's 119 outside.
God, that was brutal.
Jack's core temperature is still 92.4. But after that one. Yeah. But, and look, the next team on the list is who they play this week. But Air Force has been a really pleasant surprise. Wyoming is number 3. This should be a heck of a game. Yeah. This is Troy Calhoun versus Craig Bowles, some guys who were kind of old and grizzled in the biz. Wyoming had the big win over Fresno State, who I said earlier would be this year's Tulane, and they still might be. But Wyoming has lost 1 game to Texas, and they played fantastic in it for a good chunk of it. They beat Texas Tech. So, yeah, I'll throw the Cowboys on this list as well. So
I did not realize that Air Force was unbeaten. They haven't been tested. Sam Houston was 13-3, but they see what happens when you beat Baylor. It launches you to better things.
Yeah, well, we'll see a lot of teams getting launched then this year because
God.
Anyways, this will be a great showdown in the Mountain West. Somebody's going to get their first loss, and as far as the conference play goes, and potentially for Air Force, their first loss on the season period. But yeah, Wyoming's been a great story. Air Force is. Can they fly under the radar? The Air Force Academy?
Yeah.
Stealth bombers.
Stealth.
Yeah. But no, this ought to be a really fun one out in the Mountain West, and something's got to give there at the top of the standings. So, cool stories, both programs. And Wyoming in particular, I think, because they jumped out and beat Tech and then, had the tough tussle with Texas and gave them a run for their money. And, they've been a fun team, a spunky team to follow along with this year.
I like Craig Bolt, was on Osborne's staff for a while, went to North Dakota State, had great run, and then he's like Wyoming's just, kind of there, and they're a little bit better at times, can create a problem. Last year they were 4-8. Last year they were 6-5. What were they? 6-5. I'm sorry, 7-6, 7-6. So they've been to a couple of bowl games, and about 5 or 6 since he's been there.
Yeah, I think that this game this weekend with Calhoun and Bowl is like two guys who've been doing this for a while. Like, there's a lot of coaches that grumble. Like, I don't like
we tried to get Calhoun on the show last year before the bowl game, and almost 90% of the time we get the coach. There's like 3 or 4 schools you're not. Never did.
No, that's just not surprised. And he's well thought of.
Absolutely.
I'm not surprised. Number 2, West Virginia. 4-1, and the only loss is to a very good Penn State team. And here's the deal. They're 1-1 after the first 2, and everyone's like, well, yeah, they're supposed to be. They lost to Penn State, who's really good. They beat Duquesne, who's Duquesne. And then the Pitt game comes. They're playing with the backup quarterback for most of the game. The defense shuts Pitt down, and as Jed Drenning said, started sending Phil Yurkovich off to being a tight end, and all of a sudden you think, oh, well, this is different. Okay, won the big rivalry game. Okay, then you beat Tech. Then you beat TCU, and all of a sudden you've got Neil Brown having these guys playing super confident, rolling to Houston tonight. Man, I just thought that Neil Brown was going to be done because the schedule was going to be too tough, but he's turned it on his ears so far.
No, he has. They've been a great story. Been surprising. I don't even think the most positive West Virginia fans would have had them, not knowing what we didn't know at the time, have them at this record at this point. I don't think you could have sat there and really said, they'll beat Pitt, and then they'll go beat Tech, and then they'll go beat TCU on the road. I mean, even the most optimistic wouldn't have thought that they'd correctly navigate that stretch. The Penn State loss wasn't a surprise. Penn State's a top 5-ish, top 10 team, so there's no shame in that, especially in Happy Valley. But other than that, they've found a way. Not every game's been super pretty. They're not like a super well-balanced team, but they just make plays when they need to, and they play stingy defense, and they get by on offense. And, C.J. Donaldson hasn't been, great this year for them. They've had quarterback injuries that have come into play, and that defense has been able to be their backbone. So they should win tonight. They should. I think they're a better team than Houston, but, Thursday night on the road. But if they do, then my gosh, They've got a couple of potential stumbling blocks in the second half, but they also play a lot of the new teams. They play UCF, BYU, and Cincinnati, and they play Houston tonight. So their second half is all four of the new teams, and I would think that favors them. They will get Oklahoma. They will get Oklahoma State here in a couple weeks, but shoot, they win tonight, man. They're sitting super pretty, and who the heck knows, here in 2-3 weeks when they match up with the Sooners, for example, of what that could look like.
I'll never forget Neil Brown when he came to our table at Big 12 Media Days, and the look on his face, even then he was in a bad mood. And it wasn't because he was whining. He was in a bad mood. At 14th, he talked about having the offensive line back, and you could tell he wasn't just being coach speak. He was angry and determined, and I'm happy for them. That's a great run. Joey Foster and Cuz and all you guys that are West Virginia fans, S. Michael DeHart and Kyle Little, really happy for everyone. Not talk to everybody that's on the chat room, but good luck tonight. Enjoy the game.
Number 1, Louisville. They are, they are, to me, the biggest surprise. I thought Jeff Brom would, especially with Jack Plummer at quarterback, a guy who's transferred a couple times, even though he knew the system, would kind of, stumble a little bit, but they're set up well to win most of the rest of theirs. Now, look, they've got Miami on the schedule. I believe they have Clemson. It's going to get tough, but they play physical. They, of course, the city loves Jeff Brom and always has loved Jeff Brom and probably wanted to be the head coach the day he graduated from Louisville. But it has worked out perfectly, and so far, they're undefeated, and they really stuck it to Notre Dame. Louisville's a really kind of crazy place when fan-wise they really buy into their teams when they're good, and right now the football fans are going nuts.
No, they've been an incredible story. I don't recall really. A lot of teams you can at least remember seeing some hope or thoughts that no, they might be better than expected. I don't recall seeing anything about Louisville and being off to a start like this. So yeah, this has come as pretty much a huge shock. They've been rising up all of the various rankings as a result, and rightfully so. But Brahms rolled in there and done a great job. Meanwhile, Satterfield's kind of still feeling his way out there at Cincinnati, but you wondered how all that was going to work, and it's worked out tremendously for the Cardinals. So yeah, they've been a tremendous story. They're right there in the thick of the ACC race, and they can cause a lot more disruption. But yeah, I definitely didn't expect that we'd be talking about them, at the top of a surprise list halfway through the season. But yeah, they've been getting the job done.
Most everybody in the chat room picking West Virginia. Paxton and Clay say C.J. Donaldson's get 150 yards and a couple of scores. Thanks for the predictions. Paxton also